essentially we've just reversed that move. If we zoom into the current price action, you do have some bearish stuff going on here, right? Number one, you still can't take out 30,500. You have a
Mm-hmm.
level here at 27, which I'm watching closely. But you could also make a case that there's a pretty clear trend line. I mean, maybe even going back to here, where we can just kind
Yeah,
of
there you
slide
go.
that up
There
underneath.
you go.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's another concerning thing. So right now we haven't broken it. So you got to give it credit for not breaking it yet. But if this takes out to the downside, then that's where trouble really gets started. And we
Sam.
are, I would say you and I are probably one of the only people out there. I think there might be one or two else out there talking about that. It's certainly not the common perception. But to me, this is a bear market rally. And look at 2018-19. You had rallies that were percentage wise bigger than what we've seen here, and we still came down and
Absolutely.
made new lows, or at least touched the same lows out there. So I do hope people are careful. I think the government on purpose is not unveiling regulation because they want to unveil their stable coin, their CBDC. What concerns me and what I think a black swan could be is if the government unveils the stable coin, the CBDC, where does Tether?
For the whole week, Bitcoin didn't make any significant moves, bouncing between the 30K resistance and the 27,000 support for a couple of days created some fear in the markets, moving the market sentiment from a greedy number of 60 to around 48. Retail investors were expecting the pump to continue and the bull run to finally start, even though some technical analysts like Gareth Soloway warned that this could be a bear market rally. And today, we can see Bitcoin prices finally broke down, which is a huge sign that a bloodbath may be incoming. Yesterday, Gareth did a new interview explaining what's happening in the markets and what could happen if this level breaks, so watch the full video carefully and prepare for a potential significant move down happening in a few days. First, this is a quick take on what's happening with the banks and Social Security and how that relates to Bitcoin.
It's one more reason why there's long-term viability for Bitcoin, right? I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
cryptos in general. I mean, again,
Yeah.
not necessarily the cryptos that can continue to expand exponentially that don't have the non-fiat aspect to them, but I
Right.
mean, shit, if we look at what happened with the banking crises recently and how
Yep.
that just proved to us why we need Bitcoin, well, guess what? Here's another example. I mean, you got a government that inevitably will raise, and then they owe X amount to Social Security, which is they owe us our money. They're going to have to print that at some point. I mean, there's just endless printing that will go on, but I think investors also need to recognize that that's a long-term issue. I do think you have to pay attention to it, and I think that you see that three banks equaling that amount of deposits and
Yeah.
that amount of money is pretty scary in the scheme of things. And again, the question is, and this is what my biggest fear is, as you see more. And by the way, I think in the mid 90s there were 14,000 banks in the U.S. There's now 4,000, and
Oh
obviously more
wow, I
are
didn't know
failing.
that.
So we've already been on this
Right.
trek where it's less and less banks. And I hate to say it, but we're on the pace where eventually you're going to have 4 or 5 banks, and that'll be the
Just
only
like
banks in
Canada.
the U.S. And essentially, what they become is government owned, right? I mean,
Yep.
not literally government owned, but the point to be where they're too big to fail, so the government will always backstop them. And that's just this is just a rotation towards the ultimate outcome that's not a healthy outcome. Where again, the government will backstop them, which means more printing of money, more this and more that. They mess up, and that's yeah, it's just not a good situation.
What Gareth is seeing right now as well is that the government is purposely delaying regulation to first release their CBDCs. Not only that, but they are also on top of crypto companies like Coinbase and Binance. And this is a clear sign of how Bitcoin and crypto are still under attack. But even though that's happening, Coinbase reported positive earnings. So is it a good option for investors investing in crypto-related companies?
I haven't traded it since earnings, to be honest. They did have a good report, but like you said, it was mostly due to the fact that, so number one, crypto's gotten a little bit more popular, so that's drawing in more people to trade. And number two, they cut expenses. And what we've seen, whether it was Disney, whether it was Meta, when these companies cut expenses, investors are actually cheering that by buying
Yeah.
the stock. So I think that's part of it. Is that as we go into a recession, cutting expenses is going to be more and more popular. And
Correct.
so I think that's what you're seeing there. But at this point, it's a no touch for me. I ultimately think If you looked out 5 or 10 years, Coinbase probably is lower, mainly
Hmm.
because as competition grows, as regulation comes, the fees they charge are ridiculous, to do a buy
They
or a
are.
sell, and that will come down. If you go back to like
Exactly.
the late 90s when I was trading, it cost me $30 to buy a stock and $30 to
That's
sell a
right.
stock. Now I basically do it for pennies
Zero.
on the dollar, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So the longer term will eventually bring those down, which means that they're going to have to figure out another way to make profit.
And this is why Gareth says we're still in a bear market, and this is just a fake rally. Please pay attention.
Well, number one, you and I are not the most popular out there, that's for sure. When we
I
say these
know.
type of things,
Yeah. Yeah.
we get the brunt of the hate out there. But the
Yes.
bottom line is, we just are looking at various signals that historically have told us things, and that's what it is. I mean, when you see gambling, and again, it's not investing. There's no one's getting into Pepe saying, "Hey, I'm going to hold this because it's going to be the best quality coin out there." They're getting in it because they think that they can just sell it to someone else at a higher price. And we're seeing so many meme coins, like everyone on Twitter. What's the next meme? Where do I get in? Where do I just throw some money to try to make 1,000%? Not healthy, not good for a market. And show me one bottom of a market historically, whether it's crypto stocks or commodities or anything that has actually showed that type of speculation. You can't find it. It's not out
Right.
there, because this is the sign of a top, not a bottom. So basically, I talked about this for months in advance about the 30,500 level, and again, psychologically, that is like the major point of contention here. It was a level where, for me, it was a pivot point whether or not the low was in or not, and so far we haven't broken through it. So the low to me is potentially still not in crypto. The level, why psychologically it's so important, it was the beginning of this mega move up to 65,000. It was the dip lows and then the move up to 69, and then we came in and consolidated before breaking down. So essentially we've just reversed that move. If we zoom into the current price action, you do have some bearish stuff going on here, right? Number one, you still can't take out 30,500. You have a level
Hmm.
here at 27, which I'm watching closely, but you could also make a case that there's a pretty clear trend line. I mean, maybe even going back to here, or we can just kind
Yeah.
of
There you
slide
go.
that up
There you
underneath.
go.
And
Hmm.
that's another concerning thing. So right now we haven't broken it, so you got to give it credit for not breaking it yet. But if this takes out to the downside, then that's where trouble really gets started. And yeah, I mean, to me, to see so many bulls out there, I don't know if you're saying that there's potentially new lows to be seen in
Yes.
Bitcoin as well. But
Yes,
again,
I am.
I would say you and I are probably one of the only people out there. I think there might be one or two else out there talking about that. It's certainly not the common perception. But to me, this is a bear market rally. And look at 2018-19. You had rallies that were percentage-wise bigger than what we've seen here, and we still came down and
Absolutely.
made new lows, or at least touched the same lows out there. So I do hope people are careful. I think the government on purpose is not unveiling regulation because they want to unveil their stable coin, their CBDC. What concerns me, and what I think a black swan could be, is if the government unveils the stable coin, the CBDC, where does Tether fall in the mix there? What's the purpose of Tether if we already have something that the government has that's pegged to the US dollar anyways? And so then, I mean, I don't know. If all of a sudden Tether's not as useful, does it then create more instability? I'm not sure, but I do think investors need to be very careful. I do think that investors have to pay attention to these little things, because I mean, I know I just saw, I think it was Binance saying that they had halted Bitcoin payouts at one point for a short period of time. So there are underlying issues going on in the crypto markets. And by the way, I don't know a whole lot about gas fees either, but you know, Ethereum, I've seen so many comments
Oh, it's
about.
horrible.
I mean,
Yeah.
how is Ethereum valid in the future unless they get those gas fees down? I think your analysis is dead on, is that it is concerning to see the gas fees that high. There's got to be something that's done if these are long-term viable, useful things, to get that to a reasonable level.
And this is his final warning.
Just again, watch for me. Watch that 27-ish thousand level on Bitcoin. If we take that out to the downside, I think you probably have more downside to go. At least 25 would be 24 to 25 is my next support level. And again, just be aware that, kind of keep your ears open to CBDC information coming out from the
Mm.
government and to those type of things, and just watch how it behaves. And last thing I'll say is just going back to the speculation going on. Gambling, which is what's going on in these meme coins, is not it's actually not even a good thing for crypto in all. You know, we talked about this with Dogecoin and SHIB back in the day. It's not good. It's not a healthy thing for it. It doesn't make people say, oh, crypto's the future. If anything, it makes people more wary of the situation.
What do you think that is going to happen next now that Bitcoin has broke in the 27,000 support level? Will it act as a resistance, and will the price go lower? Or is this just a fake breakout, and Bitcoin will still hold and go up? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more curated daily crypto content like this. Thanks.